was beaten down, and she was a mess. So I had to find my way back, and I did, through family constellation and 21 days of serious work, letting my parents take their part back, reclaiming my part in all of that, thanking them for giving me the life they gave me, and letting them know I was going to be okay. After that time, I felt much more centered. I felt much more grounded. I found that I had my inner GPS back. So the needle was now centered. And I could move on. By the end of 2015, my mother was in a nursing home or about to go into one. My dad was in and out of the hospital. And by 2016, that January at the end, my dad was given 6 months because of his chronic heart condition and Parkinson's and just a myriad of other cascading physical ailments over the years. It would have been a little longer, perhaps, if he could opt for some surgery. Yet when he went for a pre-op, he had multiple loose teeth in his mouth, and they would have to pull each one of those. So he decided on his own that his life had been great, he had no regrets, and he was going to continue eating as long as he could and spending time with the family. My dad was like that. He was the compassionate one of the two. He was the one that was most just naturally kind, and that seemed like it was back again. Because for a while he had taken on some of my mother's stuff. When you live with someone for over 60 years, I think that probably happens. So what did I want to do? I wanted to honor them. But where I was, there was no sense of going again and putting myself in that place of abuse, emotional abuse. There was a sense that I knew what to do. The spirit within me, the divine strength, was now running up and down and through and around. So I created a photo album, got a scrapbook with like a dark gray and white specks for my dad, and pulled out old pictures and had a blast doing that. Really opened my heart to create that for him, for me, for my sisters, for my brother. And then it was on to my mom's, and I created hers. Hers was dusty rose and white, same type of scrapbook. There was room for each of their names on the front: Dominic, Madeline. Same number of letters, by the way. I want to share 3 encounters with my mother by phone that we had before she left that are really dear to me, and then talk about the time leading up to my parents' passing in July of 2016, and then the aftermath. The first encounter with my mother that year was a time when she wasn't really tracking, or she didn't seem to be. Now I'm relying on my sisters, my siblings, to be around when I call, or to get back to me and tell me they're with my parents, and I can talk to them, one or the other. So this day, my mother gets on the phone, my sister holds it to her ear, and she says, "Hi, Palma, can you believe these kids? Shoo, 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 shoo. Tyler, shoo, 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 shoo." And that's the story. And I asked Christine, was Tyler there? Was her son there? She said, "Oh, no. She's just confused today." And I let it go. But something within me was mulling on that throughout the day. And by the evening, I knew what she was doing. She was absolutely communicating with me. I remembered a parakeet I had had. Now, Snowy couldn't talk like parrots can, yet Snowy knew the repertoire that I taught it. he knew how to say I love you and hello, only it would sound like do-do-do, do-do. My mother was communicating with me. She was giving me the scoop on all the nieces and nephews. She was giving me the scoop on my siblings. She was telling me everything that she was being told while she was in that nursing home by family around her. So I called my sister back and said, hey, we were communicating. My mother was talking to me. And we had it going on. I get it now. So I felt blessed. The second incident, our phone conversation, wasn't so much a conversation in the normal sense. I had sent a doll to my mother from the Oz Museum in Wamego. It was a Dorothy doll. Judy Garland was her very, very favorite actress. I sent a little Judy Garland postcard as well, which I had done years before for my mother. Well, my older sister was calling to say the doll was there. It didn't have any buttons on it. It didn't have any straw or yarn hair. There was nothing to be pulled off of that doll, which made it perfect for a nursing home, a person there. It was just a cloth Dorothy doll with her blue and white checkered dress. Well, my sister didn't put my mother on the phone, but I was curious, does she like the doll? Is she enjoying it? And I hear my mother's voice from the background saying, I love my doll, I love my doll. Message received. We're still communicating via the distance. The third was most touching for me. It was a day when my mother was tracking pretty well, and she was fully present for the call. What I said, I found myself saying was, nothing but love, Mom, Mama, which she had become to me. And some of my siblings, I realized in recent Facebook posts, we were calling her Mama. Nothing but love, Mama, nothing but love. And what I felt and heard right after was, all is forgiven. It just dropped right in, and I just held on to that. What I heard in response was, me too, Palma, nothing but love. I'd felt complete at that point. A little too much, because when my sister Mary called to say that my mother was fading and there was nothing more they could do, I wrote in my little notebook journal, enjoy the journey home, Mama. It was 4 days later. It was about 4:30 in the morning, and it was a wicked, wild, rolling thunderstorm in Kansas with tons of lightning. It woke me up. I was thinking of my mother, because as kids, she would say, when it was thundering like that, oh, that's Nanny Taliani bowling a strike up in heaven. There's Uncle Henry bowling a strike. And it always eased our fears. The call comes from my youngest sister, and she's letting me know my mom has passed and wondering when I'm coming. Well, this inner strength, this inner guidance, this inner power was now, I want to say, running the show, and in a loving way. I said, just make your plans. I don't know. It might be after everything is done. It might be for part of it. I had to do, a check-in and see what was right for me. So that day I started looking at flights. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday were the events. I started with Thursday. I looked for what's going on after. What can I get a flight after or during the day? Let's see what's available. There was nothing that was reasonable. There was not a flight less than $800+. So I was discouraged. I tried Tuesday. I was going to back it up, which I didn't want to do, and the fear was coming back. It's like, this is not in my best interest, but let me look. Nothing. Well, then I was perplexed. So I called an intuitive friend. We had met through Facebook, and I had done a trade for her and peeled layers for her of her inner child the week before, and she was going to reciprocate for me this week. Well, I called her and just let her know. I said, just, do a check-in. I don't know what to do. And that opened the door for Spirit to come through. I went back to the computer, checked Wednesday, and there it was, a reasonable flight on, guess what airline? Spirit Airline, which I had never, ever heard of. So, again, fully aligned, I headed back. Were there tough moments? Yes. Was there a big giant blow up at some point with my one sister, Luann? Yes. Did we get over that? Yes. I was doing sort of silly things, because as a child, when my mother's sister passed, we were all farmed out, but not right away. And I got to stay behind and hang out at the funeral parlor for a few days. So as a 9-year-old kid, I was doing the thing like scaring people and talking about ghosts in the room or in the closets. So I was kind of comfortable when I got there to the wake. And I was just hanging out talking to people I hadn't seen in a long time. And it was kind of joyous. But I was also taking pictures. It's like, let me see if I can catch an orb. That later would be kind of a good thing when a cousin from Jersey on my mother's side, who was living in North Carolina, came in for my dad's service. She had missed my mom's. And she wanted to see Aunt Madeline in the coffin. I had a picture. She came up to me specifically for that. Because you know what? My mom looked great. She looked better than she had in years. And of course, there's no spirit in there. It's just that vehicle, that physical body vehicle. It was pretty darn amazing. And then I could let it go, which I did. Got rid of the picture. A song had been in my head for weeks before my mom passed. It's Here I Am, Lord. And it's not one we sing typically. It's not one I hear very often these days. It was part of my Catholic upbringing. It's not even a favorite of mine, tell you the truth. But I have others, like I Am One in the Spirit. That's meaningful to me. Here it was in my head. I was singing it a few days before my mom passed in my yard. And Rich is driving me to the airport, and I'm singing it aloud. And suddenly, the light goes on. I'll bet this is one that my sisters picked for the service. Of course, my mom picked it. It was the very first song that was sung at her service. So I was my heart was opening more. We were still connected. She was connecting from her place, wherever that was. I got to be a guest pallbearer along with my nephew Michael at my mom's service and for my dad's, which was really kind of neat. I got to read what my sister Teresa picked out, and the priest was fine with that at my dad's service. From 1 Corinthians 3:14, love is patient, love is kind. Because she, as she told the priest, that was her idea of my father. He was the one. That was her experience of him. So I'm going to go back to my mother's, after the service. There were dragonflies at the cemetery. Afterward, I asked my siblings if they saw them, because they were giant. There were maybe 3 flying around. They're like, no, we didn't see those. That's my symbol of joy. So I knew my mother was doing well. At this dinner, a celebratory dinner, which was sort of like a wedding because it went on for hours after, I watched my dad. I saw him get wheeled in from the nursing home, and I ran out to greet him. And he saw me running towards him. Palma, Palma. I said, yes, it's Palma. I was excited to see him again. Didn't think I would, but there we were. And he was in that place where the veil is thin. He was part there, part here, which is exactly what he said when I asked him how he was doing. He said, I'm there, I'm here. I said, okay. Later, I watched him change his expression into that of joy, and I watched him chuckle as my older sister was reading with her squinty eyes the loving thoughts and messages we had about my mother. It was really precious to see him engaged like that. And then later, he was disengaged from us, but facing the wall and speaking to someone, saying, yeah, I'll be there. It turns out my cousin Phyllis from New Jersey on my mother's side had often heard my mother say to my dad, if I go first, I'm coming to get you right after. Well, back home we went to our prospective places. My brother and his wife from Florida, their flight was delayed twice, so they were still with my sister Luann. Everybody napped. 3 hours later, we get the call. My dad had passed in his sleep about 9:30 p.m. Wherever my siblings were, there was wailing going on. Deep, deep sobbing. My youngest sister was on the floor, so all I could do was hold her. And at some point, her son, Tyler, who was 13, cut in and held him. And I just let that be. I was okay till the morning, and suddenly the grief hit me. So I'm trying to cry in a room without a door, underneath my blankets. And my brother-in-law hears, I was wondering what it is. So my sister comes in, and she holds me the way that I held her. It felt great. And I was okay after that. I was okay. I was ready. I was able to read that reading for my other sister on her behalf. And the nieces and nephews seemed strong. One of my nieces gave a little eulogy, and one had done that for my mother. It was just beautiful. My dad, having been a Korean War vet, had the flag draped over the casket, had taps played at the cemetery. It was just beautiful. And those spirit kisses started flooding in as two little butterflies by my sister's bush, which came back when I went to visit this month, July 5th through 12th, for a wedding. My nephew Peter got married, the first of my sister's children to be married. It was a joyous occasion, and I knew it would be, because not only did those butterflies show up as I was videotaping my sister's yard and her plants, her flowering plants and her flowering bushes, but the dragonflies were back a few days before I went to New York. Rich and I were at Wildcat Park with our dog, and suddenly there were two black-winged dragonflies. I had never seen such a dragonfly. The bodies were fluorescent blue. We went to the other side of Natalie's Creek, and Rich pointed out in the background dozens of them, and they either had, all with those black wings that were gorgeous, and fluorescent blue or fluorescent green bodies. We were back there yesterday, didn't see a one, which is okay, because I get my pennies. My dad sends pennies and coins. On the trip to New York for the services, on the trip to New York for the wedding last year, this month, there was a shiny, brand spanking new penny on the floor at the kiosk at Starbucks. So I picked it up, like, thank you, Dad. There was a penny in a ladies' room along my trip, at a restaurant, somewhere along my stay in New York. A shiny penny sitting atop a floor that was rows of pennies, rows of dull copper pennies, thick acrylic on top. Here's my shiny penny. I found a shiny penny in the airport at LaGuardia while I was waiting for my gate. This one was beyond a barrier. So I just had to sort of go under and grab it. Somehow when I got back, I had 5 shiny pennies fall out of my purse. I want to direct you to the heart picture on the front here. My sister Christine was looking for some pictures that highlighted my dad for his wake, because they had so many of my mom. And she came across this one that she liked, because she's in it. She's standing she's the one to the left. And then Teresa and Luann are the ones to the right. I have 4 sisters and a brother. Well, she scanned this picture in, and this light appeared. To me, it's my mother's heart light, and that's all I saw. So that's our heart. Look at the shape of that. That's a heart shape. She's sending us love. She knew how difficult it would be to say goodbye to my dad. I feel like she was really quite the help. So now I get lots and lots of hearts. They come in the shape of cookies, pork chops, hash browns, ketchup. I find them on the sidewalk. I bought a computer last December, and as soon as I did that, it had been since 2008, and I needed a new one. On my way out of the store, in the Best Buy parking lot, was this heart on the pavement. What I know in my heart is that the work we do, the forgiveness work, if we do it in earnest, if we're opening our heart, if we're sending love, that is all received. All those messages are received. It doesn't matter if it's done long distance. I believe it reaches the people we send it to. We send those messages to. And I know that miracles come from that. A Course in Miracles states there is no order of difficulty in miracles. A shiny penny, a hug, a special song. My one sister, Luann, and I actually picked a song for my dad's service. Had I not been there, I would have missed out on that. It was, I can only imagine. And we high-fived each other after it played during the service. When I went back for this wedding of my nephews, there was a little bit of at the start of the reception. And I did my self-care. I imagined sand dropping on my head and then the ocean just washing it away. When I came back to Kansas, there was a little more to do, and I did it. But at the end of that night, here's my sister and I giving each other a tight, long hug. And it said everything that we couldn't say to each other. I may not understand you, but I love you. We may not be able to communicate in person very well, but that doesn't matter. That love is still there. Thank you.